This is the Go Radio Business Show.
Tom, well, that was another week that was.
Yes, every morning when I wake up, Willie, I can't wait to see what the Donalds did next, or maybe I can't wait, but it's usually bad news.
It's funny you say that. When I'm waking up as well, my hands going out the bed before my eyes are open to pick up my phone to see the first item, to see what he's done. And obviously today is all about China's retaliation to his 104% tariff.
Yes, so I feel the Go Radio Business Show is a wee bit at a disadvantage because we record this, and by the time it goes out on Sunday, the whole world could be upside down.
Yeah, you're right, and I think there's a good chance of that. But what do you think of the President of the United States saying, I've got countries on the phone begging me, calling me sir, asking me, trying to kiss my ass? How low can this guy go?
So I think it sums it up, Willie. It's all about him. I've had time to read it since last week, and he basically, him and his brilliant economics team, they made up the way the tariffs were calculated. There was no basis of economic theory in it. He just looked at it and he said, oh, they sell us more than we sell them. We'll just stick a tariff on them. I mean, first of all, surely that's an offence that they're getting it so wrong. I mean, no, I don't think he cares, Willie. And today, while we're recording this, China has retaliated. So Trump is stuck 104% tariff on China, and China's stuck 84% from tomorrow on America. So the kind of difficult thing about all this is, as I've said many times, a tariff war leads to a trade war, leads to inflation, leads to recession. Jamie Dimon, who's somebody I listened to, the chief exec of JP Morgan, said that a US recession was a very likely outcome of tariffs. I mean, have you got a point of view here, Willie?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely, without doubt, say that there'll be a global recession if this continues and they are put in place to stay. I honestly believe that the way it's falling apart, I listened to Larry Summers this week, who used to be part of the Treasury, and like your point is, he's saying half of the numbers on the chart are completely wrong. Right,
Yep.
no, the net deficit is like 1% and 2%. They're not at 34% or 35%. So I definitely think there'll be a global recession. I think the GDP across the globe will go back the way. And I think that Jamie Dimon is right, that definitely America will have a recession. But here's what I think will happen.
Right.
I think that you can see already, Elon Musk this week has posted out a video, I'm sure, which Donald is not happy about, saying that this is not a good idea. But I think that all of this will unravel in the next 8 weeks. Nobody will be paying anything like the tariffs that the president has put down, and he will make out it's a moral victory that we're getting this, we're getting that. Wait to see the money that's coming in. But I think that no doubt, I think we'll be talking about it in the next few weeks. I'm glad we're getting a wee break for a couple of weeks, but I think when we come back, we'll be talking about it even more. But I think what's more disturbing in relation to some of the things that he's laid down, some of the orders that he's signed off, have you seen the amount of people in the States at the moment who are claiming they've been deported illegally? Right? They were all legal American citizens. There was a thing today in Arizona where the Homeland guy, Trump's Homeland Security guy, stood up in the chamber there in the local council to talk, and every one of the Democrats walked out holding up a list of legal American citizens that have all been deported by mistake, and there was hundreds of them. Hundreds. I mean, this is criminal.
Yep.
Absolute criminal.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
God,
sorry, Willie, where'd you go?
I just think that all of the things that he's done in the first 66 days, and all the things he's done in the last 20 odd days will unravel in the next few weeks. And I don't know, for him, he won't care. It'll just be water off a duck's back. He will claim it's a victory.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at. I'm still interested in trainers. I used to know a wee bit about them, Willie, and I was looking at Nike, and Nike, believe it or not, make half of their world production of trainers in Vietnam. Trump has put only 46% tariff on Vietnam. So, what does that mean in practice? He's saying, oh, build a trainer factory in America and there'll be no tariffs. But one, even if they could, it's going to take 2.5 years to get a factory up and running with the skills that are required and the investment. And so that's Nike's not going to do that. Adidas make 39% of the world's trainers in Vietnam. So what's going to happen is the US consumer is going to pay another 35% for the Nikes. So I think the way this begins to unravel is one, when you get the big American business people, and let me just run down a wee list here of who the losers have been since Liberation Day, Willie, which was only a week ago, believe it or not. So the mighty Elon, and this is personal wealth, Willie. This isn't the company. This is his personal wealth, right? He's down a measly $135 billion. Jeff Bezos, Amazon, he's down only 43 billion. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, he's down 25 billion. Warren Buffett, my real hero, along with Elon sometimes, he is up 12 billion because he bailed out of American stocks a few weeks ago. What did he know? Well, I tell you what, I'd love to know what he knows. But once all these boys are going, hang on a minute, the Donald's no good for business. He's costing me this, and the American consumer says, I'm going to pay 35% more for my Nikes. That's when I think it begins to unravel.
The point you're making is, and you're spot on, that 47% tax on the trainers getting made in Vietnam is a tax on Nike, not on Vietnam.
Yes.
Right. And all the other companies that are all importing. So you're right. I hope that the penny drops in the next few weeks and we can actually stop talking about it. Tom, another topic that we see we've been talking about for weeks and weeks, months and months, is the potential of the Scottish Government introducing a rent cap.
Yes.
And we thought we'd managed to help get it kicked into the long grass, but it looks like it's re-emerged this week and the government have kind of leaked it out, which generally means that's what's going to happen, that there could be a cap of 6%.
Well, 6% is okay, but you've told me that, as ever, the devil is in the detail, Willie. And it's not really 6%.
No, it's not, because what they're saying is that the most you can raise the rent is 1% above CPI. So that means if CPI is only at 1.5%, you can only do it. So there's a wee bit of sleight of hand here by saying it's 6%. It's not 6%. And the way that the things are at the moment with uncertainty, there's a good chance that CPI is going to be very, very low for a long time. So this could be a rent cap of 2.5%, 3%. And me and you both know, and I hope the government should know by now, that will absolutely be a barrier to investment.
Yeah, I mean, I know you lobbied the government on this. They obviously haven't listened or they haven't acted on it, Willie. I know a lot of people, Kate Forbes did a good job at getting people round the table. But there's one thing getting people around the table, Willie. There's actually listening and then saying, okay, that makes sense. What investors need to know is certainty. And 1% plus CPI, I don't think that's certain enough for investors who are going to commit hundreds of millions of pounds to a badly needed housing resource in Scotland. Any answers to this, Willie?
I actually am a bit disappointed because I thought that the government had got the message, and I thought with the Greens being out of the cabinet that this would have been an easy one. But I was actually amazed to read that. Hopefully, maybe for once, the leak is not true, but generally 100% of the time it is true. I would just say to them again, you should definitely have a rethink on this. It's okay if it was a straightforward, you can't raise the rent by more than 6%, that's fine. But to put that caveat in saying only 1% above CPI is, I think it's been a wee bit disingenuous to the people, and we should just make it quite clear what the actual new policy will be, and I would absolutely advise against it.
Yeah, and I spoke to one of the big investors who has held back in Scotland, and I said, well, what does it need to be? And he said, first of all, it needs to be consistent, and we don't have a lot of faith that this government is not going to chop and change, because we invest for a 30-year horizon in housing, as you know, Willie, maybe longer sometimes, and therefore we need certainty in the long term. And he said, look, I can live with 3 to 4%, as long as I know we've got an inflation adjuster, which is the CPI. But to do inflation plus 1%, I don't think that's going to cut it for him. And these big investors are worried that the Scottish government will chop and change once again.
Yeah, and I just think that hopefully it's not too late, and when you see so many things that are going on just now, with housing, we're still talking about a crisis every single day. Trust me, this will be adding to it. So I'll keep lobbying. I thought I had to stop lobbying on this one, but I'll probably have to keep going. Keep with the States again and with the economy and all the things that we're talking about here. And we're talking about these things because we believe that they will have an effect on business here in the UK and in Scotland. Obviously, when you see the cost of the bonds and the gilts in the American markets at the moment, if Donald Trump continues with the tariffs and these keep going, which we see is the wrong way, Rachel Reeves is not going to have any headroom at all, Tom. What do you think?
So I have read, and I haven't quite get my head run about it, Willie. The cost that governments can borrow at is usually the lowest of anybody, because a government guarantee is usually the best thing you can get if you're lending to someone you want to lend to a government. But the price, which is called gilts in the UK, has shot up to something like a 30-year high. But the commentators are saying that in America and in Britain, we may need to reduce interest rates quicker than we thought, which would help Scottish businesses, people borrowing money. But I can't quite match the two, so I need to read a bit more. Have you got an answer in that one, Willie?
Well, I just think that what I would like, not an answer, but I'd love the American people to look at this more than anything. This is the indicator as to how the president's economic policy is actually doing. And anybody, Jamie Dimon, everybody else who's anybody in the financial markets in the States will tell you this is going the wrong way. Right? When it becomes more expensive for the government to borrow money, everything else after that ends up costing the average Joe fortunes, right? All prices will go up. So, especially your Nike training shoes.
Absolutely.
I seen a story this week and I was thinking about you.
Right.
Your old partner and friend, Philip Green.
Philip Green, yes.
Went to court to try and prove that Lord Haughey broke the law by naming him in the House of Lords. I don't know if you've seen the story. Right?
I did see the story, Willie, yes.
So for the listeners and the viewers, we'll explain that politicians in the House of Commons and in the House of Lords have a thing called parliamentary privilege, where you can name people that maybe the media can't name without being sued. And Lord Haughey was the gentleman who stood up in the House of Lords. I was actually there that day. And when all the press were speculating about, scandal, big businessman and sexual scandal, all of this stuff, that he stood up and told the world it was Philip Green. So Philip, many years later now, has went to the courts to say that because that he had signed 10, I think, NDAs, so non-disclosure agreements, and paid people not to talk about it, that because of that, that Peter Hain was out of order. And now the ruling body, the commission, has said he was not out of order. So another major blow to Philip.
Yeah, well, I mean, Philip gets a lot of bad press, but just for a second, I don't think I'd be sitting here without Philip. Philip and I got on fine, and he helped me buy Olympus when the people who were trying to sell it wouldn't take me seriously. But I don't quite understand what he's trying to do here. I think everybody had forgotten about it, Willie, and it's just resurrected that. So I feel maybe he should have just have got on with his life and let sleeping dogs lie.
I think what was behind what he was doing was, obviously we can't take it back that Peter Hain named him, but I think he was trying to make the point that when NDAs are in place, then parliamentary privilege doesn't count. And I think he got a complete no chance from the judges this week.
So does that mean, Willie, you could stand up in the House of Lords and say, Tom is really an Egg United supporter and I couldn't sue you?
You could not sue me unless it was not true.
Right, okay.
So if Peter Hain said something that wasn't true, then the individual could have sued him, right?
I see.
You actually can't get sued for telling the truth.
Well, I would agree with
Nothing
that.
wrong with that, nothing wrong with that. After the great chat we had last week with Clark, it's great to see we were talking about space and rockets and all that stuff. It's great to see the Orbix have announced that they're going to launch their first rocket from Scotland next year.
Wow. Unbelievable. I loved that guest last week. I thought he was terrific. And he didn't talk much about it, but in the studio afterwards, he said he'd get unwell and his memory had been wiped, Willie. Imagine, I mean, I think my memory gets wiped every night. I can't quite remember what's going on, but he had to rebuild his memory, which is astonishing. It's almost as astonishing as launching his satellites.
And when he told us that, obviously it was off mic. We were amazed, absolutely amazed that he's actually, he's the reason why he'd been taking things a wee bit quieter, but he explained to us what had happened. But now I think he's like 99% back to normal, which is fantastic news. But the point in the Orbix thing, that would not have happened next year if it wasn't for him starting the whole space thing in here in Scotland. Brilliant, brilliant.
Fantastic. So can I just go on a wee bit of a rant again, Tom's rant of the week? And you've heard me say many times that the companies that win, the Scottish companies that win, the global companies that win with one major thing: the attraction and retention of talent. They get the best people and they retain them, and those people drive the businesses, because it's not all about you or I as the founders, because we can have a small business just doing it ourselves, but to get a big business, you need a brilliant team to be all driving in the one direction. So I have been thinking about this, and I've come to the conclusion that it's the same for every country. Every country needs to attract the best talent and retain that talent, and then that country will win. I'm obviously thinking about Scotland here. And that's why I'm dismayed about the SNP's income tax having 6 bands and being higher than the rest of the UK. Because when we're looking to attract and retain people to Scotland, tax is one thing they think about. But I know lots of companies who are having to put the wages higher than they would have if they were in Newcastle or Manchester. So that's why I don't like that. And the other thing I don't like, Willie, is Labour has now introduced, it's now happened, and this non-dom thing, which, a lot of people, as I said a couple of weeks ago, say when millionaires leave a country, oh, well, good riddance. but they wouldn't be saying that if they knew that those millionaires' tax is paying for their benefits, is paying for their free education, is paying for their free prescription, their free bus pass. There is no such thing as free, Willie. And basically, Labour's plans or Labour's policy is to say, if you've been in the UK for some time, then 40% inheritance tax is on your worldwide assets. And people have just said, we're off. And I've only got the stats for London here, but since 2014, London has lost. So it's not just this tax, but London has lost about 30,000 millionaires, and only Moscow has did worse. We understand why they're getting out of Moscow, and this is what I can't understand. Rachel Reeves, if you're listening, that means you're getting less tax. You're not getting more tax because people can leave. They can take their investment, their money, they can go elsewhere. And I just don't get it, Willie.
No, and I totally agree with you. And in fact, we got a lot of good feedback last week about our idea about having a conference at Glen Eagles. And I think it would be a good idea as well, is because we have to encourage more talent to come here, clever people. And I think if we had a Scotland's Got Talent conference, because we need more talent again at Glen Eagles, I think that we could show to Rachel and these people that they have to look at this closely, because it is definitely, again, a reason why people don't want to stay here.
Yeah. So you and I are working on that. We're going to be introducing some things at the Scale Up Scotland conference in November at Glen Eagles. There's some big ideas coming along for that, and then you and I can work on something even bigger for next year. I did get somebody writing to me who's a very close friend of yours saying we should have it at Trump Turnberry.
By the way, I love Trump Turnberry, and I love the way that he's spent his money there and the way he's done it up. So I have to be honest. You know, for me, I wouldn't mind having it at Trump Turnberry, but Glen Eagles for me, it just definitely
The Go
shades
Radio
it.
Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, another brilliant guest this week, Tony Quinn, who's the CEO of Silver Cloud and Acumen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
And Tony, you have founded 2 companies. That makes you a double entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, let's get into it. Anything in your background and your education that marks you out as a double entrepreneur?
Growing up, I was one of 3. I had 2. I have an older brother and older sister. Came from a really hard-working family, working class. Mum and dad both very much not risk takers. They had one job, pretty much their whole professional career. Dad worked for BT. Mum worked for Scottish Nuclear at the time, which became EDF. But one thing they were was savers, so it was very much first up, best dressed in my house. But I can't put my finger on it. Other than I just knew I always wanted to own my own business. I can't really put it down to a particular event or just the fact that, I was pretty competitive with my older brother. He lives in America now. I think if he didn't, we'd probably have killed each other by now. We're super competitive. But yeah, I was always trying to find an opportunity. So, in the street, I had a wee car wash. I was fixing kids' bikes and just doing whatever I don't know, I was always motivated by money. And sort of super curious about business from a very young age. So people like yourself, Willie, hearing your name and time's gone past, and yourself, Tom.
Thanks for putting that in as an afterthought there, Tony. Thanks very much.
Not at all. But yeah, as far as school was concerned, I was very much not an academic. Absolutely hated school. Couldn't wait to get away from school. But school is where probably the opportunity that I was searching for arrived. So when I was about 15 or 16 years old, as I say, I grew up in East Kilbride. This Mercedes SL pulls up in the car park, and my mate Michael jumps out of it, and I was like, Michael, what'd your dad do? He's a sales director for a technology business called NCS, who you'll know, Tommy and Owen. So if anyone turned up at my school with an SL, it was either stolen or there was a story behind it. So I went on holiday with Michael and his dad over to Spain, and for the whole 2 weeks I'd asked his dad if I'd get a job when I get back, because I didn't want to go back to school. And that was 2004, and he offered me a job, and I started with NCS.
Yeah.
And that's where it all kind of began for me.
I think this is the second time that Tommy's had a mention in the show. It's a previous mention. Yeah.
It was a great NCS was a great school. Talk about character building.
Yeah.
I was a young sales exec, going out chapping doors. My cold call day was a Wednesday. It rains every Wednesday. So it was a pretty hard school in Ox. But I worked my backside off when I was there, and I was with them for 9 or 10 years.
So we should tell the listeners, the viewers, that Tommy's business back then, it was right at the right time. This is when everybody needed a photocopier, everybody needed a fax machine, and Tommy was the guy to tell you how you could afford them by leasing them or renting them or whatever. I think he was the guy that invented the 1p per copy for everything you ever printed. So he was very, very entrepreneurial, very successful, and also as well very witty.
100%. He's a real character. You always knew where you stood with him, that was for sure. But when I was there, I developed a real passion for technology.
So Tony, tell us and the listeners and the viewers today about how you go from being an employee to being an entrepreneur and starting your own company, because a lot of people might be listening thinking, I might have a chance, I'm not quite sure what to do, I'm a bit frightened. So how did you do it?
So I think I made it clear when I joined NCS all those years ago that I was going to go and do this. It was no secret, and it was probably no surprise to the guys when I did do it.
Yeah.
I always seen it as a bit of an apprenticeship. I sort of started with 10 grand salary as a trainee, so really started at the bottom, had to work my way up. But I think when I was there, I was able to learn all the different departments. I worked in their head office, so I could see how finance worked, see how operations worked. So that was great learnings for me. And one of the things I think I picked up there was, sales and technical relationships tend to be quite fractious.
Yeah.
I think because my dad was a techie, I had a good rapport with the techies, so that really helped me, with sort of the future of the business, etc. So yeah, I think I'd made it clear from the beginning I was always going to go and do it, and I flicked the switch back in 2013. Told him I was leaving, probably the only sales guy ever to work his notice. So that told you what he thought of me. We're still good friends to this day. And I started out a business called Cherry, and that lasted about 30 seconds. Started with another guy, and I just quickly realised that our priorities weren't aligned. I wanted to build something, he was more wanting to make a quick buck. So I decided to come out of that.
So what was Cherry?
So Cherry was a telecoms business. So
Right.
we're providing communication solutions to businesses, predominantly Scottish SMEs.
Right.
And that was kind of what I felt was the safest way in, because I knew it, I had some connections there, I could make it happen really quick. So after that, I decided I was going to exit for that after a pretty difficult conversation with a guy. Decided to start Silver Cloud on the back of a fag packet, pretty much, 5 grand working capital. And I was getting married that year, so if there's ever a underlying, you better not mess this up, that was it.
That was it.
I just got on the road and started building out customers, so it was very much just me. The first years I had an Audi A3 that the wheels were about to fall off because I was doing so many miles. And yeah, a few scary moments on the early stage of that journey with cash flow and some challenges along the way.
And how did, obviously you've been in sales, and it's interesting you say that creative tension between tech and sales, and you're absolutely right about that. It still happens to this day. When you obviously decided that what you found out very quickly, and what we're all about here is people getting nuggets, you found out quickly partnerships didn't work for you
Yeah.
with Cherry,
Yeah.
right? And you decided, no. And to be fair to you, you learnt very, very quick.
Yeah.
A lot of us in a lot of partnerships
Yeah.
took us a bit longer. And now you're going to do your own thing. You've not got a lot of capital. You raise it.
Yeah.
What was it like suddenly when you're in Silver and you're on your own?
It was super
Yeah.
lonely. The old adage, if I knew what I know now, right?
Yeah.
With things like Scale Up and all the other peer networks, etc., which I'm sure we'll come on to talk about. But it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was, just the drive that you needed to get through a day and the challenges. I was every department in one.
Yeah.
I think we'd done 500,000 the first year. And it was just chaos.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos. And, a few points where we had a couple of ropey moments, almost going to run out of cash. And I remember sitting in a particular meeting right in the early days. This was where I quickly realised the difference between P&L and cash flow. And
Cash flow is more important.
exactly. So I remember sitting in a meeting and I needed the cash basically to cover bills that were coming up, etc. And I had a sort of meeting with a customer. He said, right, we need to get this project done. He says, when do you want paid? And in our industry, it's 30 days, 60 days, whatever. And I jokingly said now. And he said, right, no bother, give me a minute. So because girl comes back 2 minutes later with a post-it note, asked for my bank details, and left that meeting with 12 grand. And it was these sort of pivotal moments that, really got you going in the early days. So
Yeah. I had a wee moment like that as well, way back at the very start when a friend of mine asked me to install air conditioning in the Cotton Club. And we were up in the town, way back in the day, before your time, I don't remember it. But and that check for John Quigley saved me with cash flow.
Yeah.
I think it was about 24 grand, but that would have been maybe 1986 or something like that.
I was born.
Aye, there you go. So you definitely remember the Cotton Club.
Right, Tony, you behave yourself.
Sorry.
Aye, he's not coming back on, Tom.
So, Tony, any stories, any wee nuggets of inspiration or how you get through problems for our listeners and viewers when you're growing?
Yeah. So we, I recognised during the journey that I needed big thinkers around me. So I was really lucky to be able to surround myself with some people who had been on the journey, done it before, etc. Brought on a non-exec, a chap called Steve Smith, who's sort of veteran entrepreneur, real successful career journey. And he invested a little bit of money at the time. But what he did from a very early stage, he came in about a year into the business and helped us put governance in place, sort of old-fashioned board pack goes out a week before the board meeting, real good discipline in the business. And that investment wasn't a huge sum of money in the grand scheme of things, but it really allowed us to get rapid growth after that. So we grew really fast. We sort of about 500 customers before we knew it. And talk about growing pains and run about with your hair on fire. It was it was good times. But the consequence of all of that was, you sort of end up at a point where you're burning yourself out because you try to be all departments and do everything. And 2018 was, every decision I was making was an awful decision. And the business just slowed right down. And I knew I needed to make some changes. And that big change was building a management team, building a team around me, which was a real game changer. We developed the business into an IT business, which meant we had, more revenue coming from existing clients, more opportunity, etc. And then that evolved into what became Acumen in time, which we come on to talk about.
Yeah, but to paint a bigger picture for the listeners and the viewers, that you're a one man. You found out very quickly that a partnership doesn't work. You have to go yourself. At the same time, you're maybe going to get married. You've got all these things going on, but it's incredible. When people know the story, you've grown the business to 12 million turnover, 70 people working for you. I mean, this is if every startup we deal with ends up that size, Scotland will lift the GDP by about 10%. So that's no mean feat. So I think that in the growing pains, Tom keeps asking, what's in that period? What's the worst thing you can remember happening and the best thing you can remember happening?
So I think probably the worst and best thing was probably COVID.
Yeah.
So we obviously, like every business, had to adapt and change, and we had to move really quickly because of the nature of what we'd done. Meanwhile, you're worrying about customers paying, you're worrying about absolutely everything. And we went down to a very small team at that point in time, like most businesses did. And we could have put someone on the moon. I mean, it was really powerful. And I think out the back of that, we treated our staff really well. And by implication, you know, the business just accelerated really fastly after that. So yeah, I hate to use the COVID word, but it was probably, you know, the best.
So tell us about Acumen.
So yeah, so we back in 2022, we recognised that the cybersecurity risk was so significant, not to be ignored and not to be a footnote in a board paper or a particular product you have in your portfolio. So at the time, we had a decision to make, which is, do we do what everyone else is doing and go and buy products and services and resell them to our customers, and you know, we're in the middle kind of thing, or do we build something? And I think at the time I was about 35, 36. I thought, I want to build something. I want to do, you know, I want to build something for the future. So a bit of good luck and a bit of good fortune, I got introduced to a chap called Kevin Robertson, who was ex-Cisco, had worked out in Qatar, you know, worked with some huge organisations. Went down to Newcastle, met him for a coffee and told him what I was thinking. 4 weeks later, he moved his family to East Kilbride, and we kicked off this project of developing.
What did you say to him, Tony?
I know,
You can be a non-dom.
yeah. Just a bit of East Kilbride charm, let's call it that. So he moved up, and I was a bit preoccupied with some of the things that were going on in the business at the time, but I'd given him a remit just to build this thing. So bodies just kept arriving in the office. Like, who's that? Who's that? And all of a sudden, we built this Security Operations Centre, SOC for short, which provides proactive, reactive cybersecurity for, you know, small businesses all the way up to critical national infrastructure. So we got to a point where we realised the two businesses were a different sport, and both were holding each other back. So we decided to separate the two businesses, and Acumen was formed, and it's probably been brilliant for both businesses in so many fronts. So Acumen's just moved into his own new facility. We've invested about 2.5 million in Acumen.
And where is that?
That's in the East End of Glasgow, so that's at the new Eastworks development, Clyde Gateway, which is a fantastic build.
Oh, amazing.
So we've had loads of visitors round. It's a fantastic space for the techies and the team round there. So that business is going from strength to strength. And I think maybe from some of the learnings I had in the earlier stages of the business where I hadn't quite invested in particular areas, we've gone all in on this, and it's really worked. You know, if you look at that business, you think it'd be going for 10 years, but it's been going for 2.
So is he a partner in Acumen?
So Kevin's a partner in Acumen, yeah, he's co-founder, and CTO.
Yeah.
Also had a chief revenue officer, a guy called Mark Robertson, not related, both all originally from East Kilbride, all very incestuous, but so Mark and Kevin had created a great partnership between the two of them. Meanwhile, I'm busy here over in Acumen, over in Silver Cloud, and I wasn't doing a particularly good job of being CEO of Acumen, in all honesty. So we decided to appoint Mark as CEO. I would take founder role within Acumen, help Mark with strategy and planning, etc. And that's really given the place a lift, because you cannot be a part-time CEO of a cybersecurity business, right? The risks are too significant, and the stakes are too high. So
I've never heard of a chief revenue officer. That's a new one.
Sales guy. So
the old business development team is the CRO. Yeah, right. I'll need to drop that one on my guys tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, I believe me, you are the CRO.
But I used to be. So tell us what do you think so it's interesting to hear that, if I'm reading you right, there's actually no cross-fertile between the businesses.
So I think Silver Cloud gets all the benefit of having an enterprise-grade cybersecurity business in the family, let's call it. But Acumen very much does its own thing. Again, Silver Cloud sells to SMEs, so its competitors are other MSPs, managed service providers like us. Acumen partners with people like that. So again, having any link with us or being involved with us wasn't great for them. So there is a bit of crossover between the two, but it's at arm's length and on sort of more official
Yeah,
capacity.
the reason why I say it is I love cross-fertile.
Yeah.
I love it when I'm going to expand,
Yeah.
and maybe that expansion I can go to my existing, you know, it's all Jack
Yeah.
Welch,
Yeah.
do more and more for the people that you're dealing with, you know. So I think that to hear now we've got this wonderful cybersecurity business, the East End of Glasgow, part of the regeneration of the East End through Clyde Gateway, who've done an amazing job.
They have done an amazing job.
Obviously friends of the show,
Yeah.
right? But I think that, and I can't believe that obviously you're local to me, right? I don't think I've ever heard that. I don't know if we've met before, but absolutely thrilled to hear that here on our doorstep we've got something special. And me and Tom can tell you, trust me, there is a big requirement for cybersecurity.
There is indeed.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a footnote, and it shouldn't be something you're going to talk about at the next board meeting. You should absolutely talk about it at the next board meeting.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the goal? What's the aim?
So I think both businesses have got clear 5-year plans.
Yeah.
Silver Clouds is growing sort of capability, growing into AI. Automation will be a big part of what we do in the future. They can't afford to miss out on that. Acumen will continue to build on those partnerships. And you know, we the strategic plan they put together shows the company's about 100 million in 5 years' time. So we're super excited and believe we can do it.
Wow.
Aye.
That's some good plan.
Tony, have you had any help along the way? Has any good things happened?
So we've had a little bit of seed investment, not a huge amount on the grand scheme of things. I think all Acumen's largely been funded out of our Silver Cloud business.
Yeah.
So we may like to raise some money in the future to go faster, but I think, you know, our preference is let's just double down on, you know, stick to our knitting just now, and grow organically as best we can.
I love it when people say stick to the knitting.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And so the expansion, are you working on the expansion of Silver Cloud while obviously Kevin's working on, are you get a wee bit competitive? Are you,
so
I see we're going to outdo
I'd
them?
actually written that down in my notes. So the two businesses are majorly competitive, but nobody talks about it.
Brilliant.
So there's this sort of, I want to be bigger than that one, which is great for me and everybody that's involved, to be fair. So there's a lot of there's a lot of competition between the two businesses.
So in the minute we've got left, give your business a plug, tell people how they can get in touch with you and which services you've got to offer.
Yeah, so Silver Cloud is a IT managed service business providing SMEs in Scotland with telecoms, IT, connectivity, mobile, and we are running an AI event with Microsoft on the 1st of May. So have a look on our website, you'll see that, which is silvercloud.co.uk. And Acumen is a pure play cybersecurity business, providing proactive, reactive cybersecurity services to organisations of all shapes and sizes all over the UK. And they can be reached at our website, acumencyber.com.
Brilliant. Tony, thanks for coming on the show, mate.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Tony, it's a brilliant story, and I'm glad you've been through the Scale Up Scotland, and hopefully you've benefited from that. But brilliant to hear your stories, and I want to see who wins. Is it Acumen or Silver?
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that. We'll have a wee bet on it.
Aye,
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, on the board you can't afford this week, we've got James Fleming, who's the founder of The Power Within Training. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hello, James. The Power Within Training. What on earth is that?
So we're a leadership development and business growth consultancy company based in Eurocentral North Lanarkshire.
Oh,
wow. Right, okay. I always wondered who was in there.
He's the only one. I was going to say that. There's no many.
But hopefully it'll be full soon. Tell us a wee bit about the business, have a wee chat, and then you can ask us your question.
No worries. So I started the business almost exactly 8 years ago, me and my co-founder, who's also my wife. We've been running the businesses for 8 years. We have absolutely zero training experience. I'm ex-Sparky.
Right.
So I served my times a Sparky, and I then moved into the oil and gas industry. And it was my time in the oil and gas as an engineer. I became quite a senior person, and I used to send a lot of my guys on leadership training and business training and sales training, and they would go away and have a fabulous 4 or 5 days, and they'd come back, nothing changed. Back to the old habits, same old, and I used to think to myself, what's wrong here? What am I doing wrong? I'm a huge believer in training. So I called my wife up one day and I says, by the way, I'm going to go and start my own training company. And we were living in Dubai at the time, by the way. So we're in Dubai, and I says, we're going to move back to the UK and I'm going to start my own training company. And she says, let's do it. And that was it. The Power Within training was born.
You've obviously listened to my story, moving back from Abu Dhabi, you opened up in Glasgow, yeah.
We actually met in Dubai, believe it or not.
Aye?
Yeah.
Wow. And so tell us a bit about the company today, what you do. Get a good plug.
Yep, so we're a leadership company, leadership development, business growth. We do business coaching, executive coaching. There's 16 staff. We're quite big in the construction sector, believe it or not. It wasn't planned, which you probably hear all the time. We fell into the construction sector. We just happened to have a couple of clients. And I always believe, see, when you're really good at something, your brand builds itself. So our brand kind of started to build itself. So probably about 80 to 85% of our revenue is pure construction sector, and the rest is in Scotland.
Right. So some of the big construction companies would send people to your senior management team?
Senior management team, Vistry, Caddick, Gilliard, Barrett's, Redrow, so they're all our customers and clients.
So back in the day when I used to get sent to places, obviously what you're doing is you're doing an analysis. So you're doing a kind of Myers-Briggs kind of Belbin's test to see what people's strengths and weaknesses are. Is that what it's all about?
Great question. We've actually built our own psychometric test.
Wow, brilliant.
So we actually hire psychologists and business psychologists in the business, and it costs you a lot of money to do those psychometric tests. So I thought, why don't we build our own?
Right.
So we did.
Have you got a quirky name for it?
It's called motivational intelligence leadership psychometric testing.
Brilliant.
So basically it's measuring your mindset, your growth mindset.
So we should tell the listeners. So what that does is, for the listeners and the viewers, is that allows you to tell their employees what you believe the capability of that person is. Is he a leader? Is he a follower? What is he? So this is, and I've got to say to you, when I first get sent to them way back in the day with Asda, I thought, this is a waste of time. They're not a waste of time. No. They're absolutely not a waste of time. They're worth every penny. So I would say to anybody who's listening, if they fancy trying this, I'll tell you it's worth every penny.
Absolutely. And what we do is, it's really different, is we do a post. Yeah. And a pre and a post. Yeah. And what we can then do is we can then go to the leadership team and say, here's the results. We just attended our training course, and they're like, wow. Yeah. And the feedback and our clients literally come back, which is a great way to run a business.
Brilliant.
Recurring revenue.
So what's your question for the board you can't afford?
So my question for the board I can't afford is this. So for the last 8 years, we've been investing every penny, we're quite a decent turnover, quite a good profitability, but we constantly invest it. Yeah. Systems, processes, and more importantly, people. Yeah. We're in year 8. Yeah. We hit 1.6 million this year. We're planning 2.6 for next year. We're kind of like, where do we stop constantly investing and start to, put some money aside? So that's the question, because it's a tough one, because I'm a big dreamer. I've got this huge vision, taking this to a $1 billion company all over the world. Right. But then you're like, do I want to keep doing this forever?
Do you want to go first? You want me to go first, Tom?
You go first.
Right. Willie. Okay, I would say, I was probably similar, back in the day. But for me, I was lucky that my wife was at the heart of my business as well. And with her, nobody had to tell her that cash was king. Mm-hmm. So to be fair to her, I had to fight to get money even to invest in the business. But as soon as we got to a point where we were generating enough money, that her mantra always was, put it by, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Put it by. So I think back in the day, we started in 85, and by 94, when we sold 67% of the business, when Three Eyes came in to do their due diligence in the business, they couldn't believe how much cash we had in the business. But I'll tell you, I think I've told Thomas a story before, but this is interesting. Way back then, when you're new and you're building a business up, somebody wants to come in and buy it, and you don't know the rules about selling your business. Yeah. So I think at the time that time we're turning over about £6 million, but to be fair, we were making good margin back in the day, maybe 830 grand a year or something, right? But we had like £960,000 in the bank, and they couldn't believe it. And it was only at the last minute where I decided to change my luck, and I said to them, oh, and by the way, the multiple we were working out for selling the business doesn't include the cash, that's ours. And I couldn't believe it, and he says, okay. So it's been a chancer. So to answer your question, you'll know when you've invested enough in the business, and you'll know. And what you always said to me back then is, if you're doing a bit better, you want to buy a better house, you want to buy a better car, all the things that come with risk taking and working hard, that you only ever done that for cash, right? And we only ever done it if there's still plenty of cash left. So we didn't buy, if we had 100 grand, we didn't buy a 100 grand car. No, you're getting a 10 grand car. But I think that you will know, you've been sensible up until now, and I would say to you that having a ratio of keeping cash for like half a cash flow you need for a quarter. Tom will know more of this than me, but I would say that's how I would look at it. You're never using everything that you had. A good rule of thumb, keep 2 months' wages, full salaries for everybody. Always keep that as cash flow. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, well, I was going to say exactly the same, James. I was going to say
The same as him.
So whatever Willie says, I usually go along with. I think after 8 years, you should be tucking a reasonable amount away. And if the business, it sounds to me as if you've got good cash flow and good profitability. So if you've got these things, then yes, you're obviously going to invest for the future, but you've also got to put something away, because, trying to forecast, and I think we've talked about it on the show many times, every business forecast I've ever seen goes left to right, upward only, and all of them are wrong. And trying to forecast the future is a really difficult thing. But you're obviously backing yourself, you're backing your wife, you obviously love what you do, but just keep something back, because you just never know. In the early days, it's very hard to do that. 100%, you got to keep putting back in. But after year 8, I would be suggesting to you that you're tucking stuff aside. What do you think, James?
Well,
Can I just say something before
of
you
course you
answer?
can. Yeah.
Obviously, as well, you've done great. 8 years, the 2 of you working hard, you've got to 1.6, but you're obviously giving yourself a big challenge to get to 2.6 next year.
Organic growth.
Right, and I take it that you'll need a bit of funding for that. But I think when you take that quantum leap, that would definitely be a time when you can take a bit out.
Well, believe it or not, what you said really hit a nerve. I'll tell you why. Because this is how I hire, right? So we have a look at the business. We're very good. We're forecasting, by the way. We're kind of spot on most of the time.
Okay, well,
That'll be our first.
Believe it or not, our plan last year was to hit 1.6 million.
Yeah.
We hit 1.595. So well, I think we're 50 quid below the 1.6. And this is how I hire, right? So I'll say to my wife, who's my business partner, who sits next to me in the office, can we afford to bring on this person or that person? Can we afford to run a TV ad? And the answer is yes or no. And that's it.
Yeah, and you agree?
That's it.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Because
I was
she handles the money pot.
I was the exact same.
Do you know another thing? This is a thing. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. She also has multiple money pots. So see, the minute money comes in, VAT goes into a pot. Marketing goes into a pot. Profit, she takes a profit off right there and then, and that goes into a pot. And the rest is the working capital.
You are so lucky to have her. Let me tell you. Let me just tell you, I'm in a worse situation. Still to this day, after 40 years, my wife warns the accountants not to tell me how much money we've got in the bank. I am not kidding, right? But I found a wee way how I can get in, right? But, I mean, you've mentioned your wife 10 times. What's the good lady's name?
Her name is Ines Fleming.
Well, I can tell you that she's a huge part of the success of this business. So in the last 30 seconds of go, tell the listeners and the viewers how they can get in touch with you, how they can use your services.
Really simple, really easy. If you're looking for leadership, development, business growth, business coaching, executive coaching, the power within training. Okay. On all social media platforms, it's the power within training. We're huge on LinkedIn. In fact, you probably see us all over it.
See, if I was on it, I'd probably say I'd seen you.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much Ian, for coming.
Appreciate that. Was brilliant. Thank you.
Well, James, keep in touch with the show because I can sense the 2.6 is in the bag. So you've got to come back and tell us if you hit it.
I'll definitely do that.
Brilliant.
When I hit it.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love it. Magic. Thank you very much. Tom, not a brilliant show. We've been working so hard. We're going to get a couple of weeks off, right? So while we're sunning ourselves, while you're sunning yourself in sunny Palma and I'm sunning myself in sunny Burnside, that we're going to have a wee break for 2 weeks. Hopefully when we come back, we'll not be talking about Donald Trump.
Hopefully not, Willie. I've only got one question for you. Do I get holiday pay?
No.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.